Greetings and welcome to our show, Fresh Geek Context. It is here we discuss insightful views on a routine bi-weekly basis over the incredibly nerdy things we can't stop talking about. To take you on this dorky ride are your host, Josh.
I am Groot.
And myself, Jay, so why don't you take a seat, sit back, relax. We're here to do all the heavy lifting. It's about to get nerdy. This is episode 20.
Welcome to the freaking Guardians of the Galaxy review. With extra freaking.
Yeah, this is a family show, remember?
But Rocket gets to say it.
Fine. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Guardians of the Galaxy movie review. Here we will go over first non-spoilers, give our impressions of the films, then we'll take a break, go into learning time. And after we finish it off with full spoilers, we're going to be talking about our favorite scenes and what the extra credit scenes kind of mean going forward.
Yes, and I have a theory or two on one of those end credit scenes, and you do as well. We'll go on a little bit of debate on that, but we'll get onto those later.
Indeed. For now, let's start getting into the non-spoiler review of the movie. I realize for the FGC podcast, we are kind of getting our footing here, so to keep some semblance of something coherent, we're using the shoe cubby.
The shoe cubby?
Yeah. After, a movie, I'm thinking we come back, we put our things in the cubby, in order, every time.
Like Mr. Rogers?
Yes, just like Mr. Rogers.
Okay, so what's the cubby?
Okay, so think of it like this. You have this small little shoe cubby, and it has these slots, right? And the top slot, we do overall reception, right? The overall reception doesn't necessarily reflect how we feel about something. It's, how a movie is being generally received. Either in the first few days, opening weekend, first couple of weeks, depending on when we decide to review a movie. Or if we decide to go a throwback for a classic movie, let's say, for instance, we're going to be re-reviewing the original, Avengers that came out in 2012. We'll talk about overall reception. Yeah, exactly. We'll do the overall reception, right?
Right.
Okay, and then after that, the second cubby slot is going to be the plot, where we just talk about what is the movie about. We got to talk about that. Third slot is going to be action, followed by acting, then music. I'm thinking cinematography, which is very important because that's pretty much the look and feel of the entire thing. Then after that, we talk about conclusion. And then the very last slot, we can talk about potential stingers. We can talk about Easter eggs. We can talk about cameos, so on and so forth.
Is there a slot for me to change my sweater like Mr. Rogers does?
See, I don't like the Mr. Rogers, the comparison, because he always kind of creeped me out, especially when they started talking about the puppets. The puppets, that was high time for me to clock out, go watch some cartoons, play some video games, or do something else.
But it was in the land of make-believe.
Yeah, nope. I'm, again, checking out. I'd rather deal with a room full of spiders.
Right.
The land of make-believe. He just made me uncomfortable. I don't know. It's something weird about that show.
Moving on.
For me, anyway.
All right, but we'll leave all that for, we'll leave the stingers and the Easter eggs for after the break. So, shall we? Let's go.
Yes. Let's go. Overall reception. Let's talk about that first. So far, so good. It's the weekend. We are recording this on Friday the 5th.
Happy Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah, that's right. We always forget to wish everyone, happy holiday. But what do we celebrate on Cinco de Mayo? Is that a thing? Or is that a day where everyone goes out?
That's Mexican independence.
Ah, now I learned something new.
Yeah,
but here we just drink.
We just drink. Yeah.
Yeah, without any clue apparently. So my question to you is: does Thursday count as part of the weekend?
Nowadays it does.
It does. So it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's not a 3-day weekend anymore.
Yeah, because movies used to come out midnight. You would wait Thursday night, come out midnight. Now it's just Thursday. You go at 7:30. It's like a whole day before the film comes out at this point.
Okay, fair enough.
So
I
don't know why they still do Friday releases when it's Thursday, but whatever.
Listen, people like me, I want to see it as soon as possible. They were showing it at the theater that I went to for I think it was 4 in the afternoon.
Okay, yeah, I didn't see it till 10 anyway.
Yeah, I saw it at 7:15. We could have seen it together, guys, but it was just easier. I wanted to see it as soon as possible.
Life things happened.
Life things happen, exactly. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. But we get to sit down and we get to talk about it right now. So the reason why I want to talk about overall reception first is because there was this very strange article that was talking about how this was the weakest MCU film to date. Now, did you hear about anything about this?
Yeah, I heard some trickling about people going, this is like, not the greatest MCU film, that, this is actually, one of the weakest of the entire franchise. And in my head, I'm thinking, really? Guardians 2? That's going to be the one to finally just be like, nope, that's weak. I didn't really pay too much attention to it. And then, lo and behold, I read a few articles later saying, oh, yeah, just kidding, people actually like it. And it's like, okay, that was just very weird. I don't understand why that popped up out of nowhere. What did you think about that?
Yeah, so I was reading this article, and it said that it's from a website called Film. It's from a website called Film, Blogging the Real World, and there's no author. But what I will do, guys, is I will find the website, and I'll add it in the description. But the title of the article is called The Unpopular Opinion, Guardians of the Galaxy is one of the weakest MCU movies. Now, look, this movie has been out for less than a day. And I'm always a little leery about kind of talking about how I feel about a specific movie so close after I've seen it, because I'm still processing. There's still a lot just kind of going on. I don't know if I'm in a good mood or a bad mood, which we'll get into later. But I really enjoyed the movie. For someone to knock it so quickly out of the water, saying that this is the weakest of the MCU movies, you have to be talking about something pretty serious here. Right. I'm not going to read it, but, there are some bullet points that they talk about. They talk about style over substance, and how he talks about how Guardians of the Galaxy is a movie that he really loves. However, Guardians' bold stylistic choices, while on their own are admirable, fail the movie in both terms of its narrative and characters, as well as the film's place within the MCU. I have no idea what the heck that even means. I don't even know if we were watching the same movie. The author also goes on to talk about the wrong protagonist. And it says here that one of the biggest narrative problems with the Guardians of the Galaxy is that it has the wrong protagonist. In a film whose story lies entirely with Gamora, we're instead saddled with Peter Quill. I really don't think we were watching the same movies.
I definitely don't think so either.
Yeah, and so I read that as soon as, because I don't like reading spoilers after it, because it doesn't it ruins the movie.
Sure.
And I had been watching all of these trailers and avoiding news as much as possible, because this is something that I fully wanted to immerse myself with. So that was the one bad article I saw. There were a few others that said it was good, but not as good as the first one. We'll talk about that a little bit during the second.
I read a review on IGN, kind of the same thing. They were just like, yeah,
kind of the same thing.
It's okay, but not as great as the original, of course.
Which is exactly what happened for the Avengers. I loved Avengers Age of Ultron, but there were a lot of people who said, essentially, that Avengers was way better. And in pretty much all ways, that Avengers 1 was better than Age of Ultron, which I don't necessarily know if that's true. I do enjoy the first Avengers the most, but that's not taking away from Age of Ultron. There were some flaws and setbacks, but I take these as set pieces. These are, puzzle pieces that are moving towards a bigger picture. We know this. We talk about this all the time. Without getting too much as to if I like it or not, this is the overall reception. Right now, it looks like everything else is tapering off. The last time I checked, Rotten Tomatoes had this at 86%. I'm sure that'll fluctuate. Josh, did you happen to see when the latest Rotten Tomatoes was for this?
So right now it's standing at an 81%.
So it dropped a little bit.
Yeah, it dropped a little bit, but that's for the critic score. The audience score is at an 89. So the audience score,
and that's
they're liking it a lot so far.
Okay,
but 81 is still not a bad score. It's still really, really great. So
Absolutely. And, then there's the box office results. Now, again, we're recording this on Friday the 5th. It's coming out, the following Monday, the 8th. So when it comes out, we're obviously going to know how well it did. But, Josh, I know you have some numbers.
Yeah, so right now, as of today, we're recording. The Thursday night opening box office results came in. With Guardians already making 17 million on day one.
Good Lord.
As of this point, it has already beaten Beauty and the Beast, which came out earlier this year. That made 16.8 million on its Thursday night opening, so it already beat that. And then I think the third highest was 15.8, made by Furious 7. So it's clearly beaten that as well. So it's already doing great on its first opening night. I can only imagine it's going to do even better throughout the weekend run. Right now, they're on track for 140 million for the weekend. So let's see if they hit that once this episode comes on out.
Okay. In the description, we'll also post these numbers so you can have that as a reference.
Definitely.
Okay, and so the next thing that we have for, the Shoe Cubby is the plot.
Yes, so the plot of the film, let's just go over that really quickly.
Sure.
We are talking Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 here. Was directed by the one and only James Gunn, who returns from the successful Volume 1 release, the original film?
Nah, not Volume 1, it's just Guardians of the Galaxy.
Just Guardians of the Galaxy, okay. So we have returning characters: Star-Lord, played by Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana as Gamora, Dave Bautista as Drax, and we have the voices of Bradley Cooper for Rocket Raccoon, don't call him a raccoon though, and Vin Diesel as Baby Groot, little Baby Groot, so adorable.
I love it how you call Chris Pratt Star-Lord. Peter Quill.
He is Star-Lord. He is Star-Lord though.
He is. Okay, go ahead.
Star-Lord, man.
I know.
But then these guys, this movie takes place about 4 months after the original film.
Wait, 4 months?
4 months. That's why Baby Groot's still a little baby.
Yeah, that explains a lot. Okay.
It's only 4 months. So we find our heroes for hire on a mission from the Sovereigns. They are a race of gold people.
Gold people. Yes.
They're very gold. Gold member would have a lot of fun with them. But the race is called the Sovereigns, and they are led by Aisha, who is played by Elizabeth Debicki. And as the Guardians do, they have a history of getting into trouble, specifically a little person named Rocket. And
kicks things into motion.
Definitely kicks things into motion, and they actually start getting chased by the Sovereigns. So they almost get captured, but then a mysterious man comes by, destroys all of them for the most part. And, this gentleman is named Ego, played by Kurt Russell. And Kurt Russell claims to be the father of Peter Quill. That is a nice summarization of this film right here, going forward. So what did you think of the story?
I liked it. Man, that's like basically your summary is basically the first 20 minutes.
Pretty much.
Which is supposed to be what your plot is, whether you're writing a movie, script, or if you're writing a book. It's supposed to be the first 3 chapters for the most part. Like, you're supposed to summarize it as much as and as concise as possible.
Right.
The plot for the story, I found refreshing. I liked it. Without getting too much into spoilers, because that's for later, I liked it. I wanted more, but I knew that everything that I was going to be seeing in the movie was only what I'm going to be seeing in the movie.
Sure.
So, I can't really get myself too excited because I know it's going to be, another 3 to 4 years? Because the first one came out in 2014. It's 2017. They're just about finished wrapping up for, Avengers 3, yep, which we already know stars most of the guys that are in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. So
it will return, yes.
As far as this movie is concerned, I enjoyed it. it's really hard for me to talk about, specific plot points, but I'd say that this summary is enough for me to want to watch it again. Let's put it that way.
Sure.
So let's talk. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Now I was going to talk about the third, slot, which is action. But if you had another point that you wanted to bring up about the story.
Oh, yeah, no, I was just going to say that, the plot was definitely, as you said, it was refreshing. It takes, a lot of, liberties and emotions, and they kind of put them straight in your face. When the plot wants you to feel something, you definitely feel that. So I do appreciate that, the way that it was written, the way that it was structured. I thought it was done very, very well.
You can tell that Mr. Gunn definitely had this idea way before he even completed the first movie. Like, right. It's something you can tell.
Yeah, definitely.
Without talking about specifics, I instantly knew the way they were setting it up, like, this was almost a continuation of part one. As in, right, exactly. This was the part that, like, pretty much the beginning sequences when you meet Ego for the first time, you can kind of feel like that could have been something that you could have put in to part one, and it would have fit perfectly.
Right.
And so there was a lot of spillover, and it was just a nice flowing continuing of the story.
Right. This is the story that Gunn really wanted to tell at first, but of course you needed that initial introduction of the characters and everything. That's what we got with the first film. And this is a story that he was like, all right, now that I've introduced these guys, this is what I want. And
right.
I mean,
so this is the film that he wanted to make. Yeah, he certainly delivered. He nailed it.
James Gunn did a very, very great job writing and directing this film for sure.
Yeah. These slots, I realize, as good it is for structure, it's going to be really hard because when I'm talking about the plot, I'm like, oh, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about that, but I can't.
Sure.
But we'll swing back around after. The third slot that we have is action. Now, action in this movie is pretty intense. Not outlandish, the Fate of the Furious style. It's not outlandish. It's fairly parceled out. Yeah. It's very even-keeled. The story blends well with the action sequences, and there's a giant climax at the end, which is great. Because a lot of times you go into this lull, and it's kind of boring. You could kind of doze off in the theater, but the story is so well constructed where when I saw it, I didn't feel like it was boring. They were filling it up with very important parts that moved the story forward, that pretty much tugged at your heartstrings. There's going to be a lot of these moments in there when you're watching this movie.
For sure.
And, we'll talk about this as well, but the trailer does a fantastic job of not spoiling anything. Specifically the Kurt Russell reveal. I was surprised that they put that in the trailer, and I started getting nervous, but I think Marvel has gotten pretty good where they understand that the trailer is a marketing tool and not a spoiler for the movie. Right. Because as soon as I saw Kurt Russell, I was like, yes, I get to see him. Do I want to see him, though? And, it turns out that you see him in the first, 15, 20 minutes of the movie, which was alarming because I guess I'm trained by now. Like when I'm seeing a movie, like I'm supposed to be watching for these specific markers. And so when I see it in the movie at a certain point, I'm like, oh, okay, they understand moving in marketing materials don't have any impact on the story or vice versa. Right. Which I like. Yeah. What did you think about the action? Because I don't want to get into the action.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I thought the action was great. I thought there were some really, really cool moments. Along with the action, of course, they have great banter between the characters, especially the first action sequence, which is technically also the credits. I don't think that's a spoiler.
Right. So the parts that were in the trailer, I guess we can talk about because it's already been seen.
Yeah.
The part where you see the giant squid monster on the giant platform where the Guardians are kind of fighting together, that is the very first part of the film, which was strange. I didn't expect to see it that soon. It kind of caught me off guard. I was like, oh, okay, so this is there.
Right.
But that sequence is parceled with, titles And so that's something where I felt like I would like to see it again, simply because I don't know. I couldn't like I was paying attention to the titles as well as paying attention to the action. It's a lot going on.
But I thought that blend, like, there's definitely action going on. Like, you see, Drax getting thrown around. You see Rocket getting, like, zipping through the air in his little jetpack or whatever. And then you got, like, little baby Groot walking around doing his little thing or dancing around, whatever.
Pretty much avoiding danger at every moment.
Like every single, like, classic cartoons where everything's happening and you got the one little person just walking and nothing happened to them.
Correct.
It was great. So, action sequences with like those comedic moments or throughout the film and put in very, very good places. Like, you got your emotional stuff, but then at the same time, so it doesn't get you like too teary-eyed, it'll cut to like, an action sequence that's happening somewhere else or, whatever
or it comedy. Is. Or comedy. Don't forget the comedy on this movie is elevated tremendously.
Like, I thought the first one was funny. This one's even funnier. And, not to say that this is a comedy movie at all, but, I mean...
Isn't it, though? I feel like you could
classify it as an action sci-fi comedy, right?
Sure. All of the above.
So, yeah, but the action filled with that comedy is just so well done and so well timed as well, which I like. Sometimes you'll watch a movie and there's an action sequence out of nowhere and it's just like, oh, well, that sequence is there just because they didn't have anything else to say, so the action just started.
Right.
But here it's placed when it needs to be placed. There's not an action sequence for the sake of action. It's there because it needs to be there.
Necessary.
Which is what I like. Yeah, exactly.
So now we get to the fourth cubby, which is acting. Man, the acting has improved. I know we just talked about this a little bit with the action sequences, but like we said before, several heartfelt moments, some tearjerker moments. Without spoiling anything, understand that there are pairings that are made between the cast, like Peter and Ego. There are going to be these moments where those two characters are going to be talking to each other, and it works very well. Gamora and Nebula, these are two people that were confirmed to be in the movie. You see them inside. They do have many speaking lines together, and there's a lot of unresolved issues that kind of come to a head, in the second iteration. Rocket and Groot are teaming up again. I do like the role reversal. This was something that was also kind of revealed in the trailer. How Rocket was standing on the shoulders of Groot and the kiln, and during the breakout sequence, there is a small segment where it's kind of reversed, where Rocket has the guns and Groot is standing on the shoulders of Rocket. And it's not just these action sequences. They understand these characters and how each one leans on one another. And they understand them well. It's probably better than any Fast and Furious movie that I've ever seen when it comes to family is concerned.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and then there's Drax and Mantis. Mantis is a brand new character who's played by Palm. I think her name is Clementine Typh. I'm really sorry if I'm screwing up your name. I apologize. But she's certainly new to me. I have never seen her, before. But there are, these moments where these two characters are getting paired together. Not really in a specific way. It's just that these two people have speaking lines together. And they play well off each other. Let's just put it that way. So, definitely. And then there's Yondu, which we'll save for later because the spoilers are at the end of the show. I feel like Yondu gets paired off with everybody. Not everybody. Most Rocket. Of the characters. Yeah, Rocket is one. Peter's the other one.
Yeah. He gets a good amount of
he gets a great amount
of screen time, and Michael Rooker, Michael Rooker brings it. He did a
always
very, very
liked him. Job. Always liked him. Always liked Michael Rooker. Michael Rooker played in a movie called Mallrats. That was the first time I ever knew who he was. Mallrats is a movie directed by Kevin Smith. It was his second feature film, and it's a lot of potty humor, wee jokes, comic references, and it's a 90s movie. I don't necessarily know if I love it as much as I did, but Michael Rooker certainly played a villain very well. He played Svenning. He played the father of a character by Claire Fulani, played the character Brandy. And he was very protective, and he was this really sleazy guy, and he was trying to get Brody to go away, essentially. And he was probably the best actor in that film, next to Jason Lee, of course, but that's neither here or there.
Of course.
But yeah, the acting in that they all did their job. Everyone brought the fire. They all delivered.
Definitely. And then I also think, just really quickly on Dave Bautista playing Drax, his comedic timing got so much better. Like
his comedic timing was fine in 1.
That's what I'm saying. Like in 1, it was great. Like he was like one of the standout characters in that film, and then in this one, he got even better. Like he was awesome in this film. Bradley Cooper felt like he was more comfortable as Rocket now, so his lines were great.
Sure.
Baby Groot's, he says I am Groot in a baby voice, so there's that.
It says a lot because Vin Diesel has to act like a baby.
Exactly, yeah. But Baby Groot's facial expressions and things like that, of course, thanks to better technology, were drastically improved. You can feel the emotion in his eyes. Same thing with Rocket, like the the emotion in their eyes and everything. Like you can feel that a lot more too. So it's not just the the actual real life characters, but these CGI characters that they brought to life as well. You can feel them, So acting all around has gotten a lot top notch still, as always.
There is a scene in the movie where Baby Groot is not literally tortured, but he's being hazed. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And he gets some alcoholic beverages poured on him. And he comes back and he sees 2 people in a jail cell. And he just looks so sad.
It was just like, I just want to hold you and just comfort you.
He just looks so sad. I just wanted to dry him up and put him next to like a warm fire just so he can dry up and be happy.
Remember, he's made of wood. Don't put him too close.
And not too close. But I wouldn't put a human too close to fire either. And just like close enough so he can just dry up. He was soaked and waterlogged.
Yeah.
That poor thing. Moving along. We're going to talk about the next slot, which is music. Now, the score delivers again. The music was released on all digital music platforms. There was Spotify, iTunes. There was also Apple Music, Google Play Music, and Amazon. If for whatever reason you're using a service that didn't particularly release this amazing, awesome mix, Volume 2, you can pretty much find the songs and you can make your own playlist for Awesome Mix Volume 2.
Yep. I mean, yeah, so the score itself was done by Tyler Bates. He did the first one as well, so he returned for the second.
Yes.
The score of the film...
He also did God of War, too, by the way.
He did do God of War, which is why some of it sounds just a little bit like it, but that's okay. But yeah, he did do God of War as well. It's the music for the actual score of the movie, fantastic. It hit all the right beats when it needed to. Everything was in sync with the film as it should be. And then as for the other music, not the film score, but like the songs that they use, kind of like they did in the original film as well. These guys really know how to pick really good songs, don't they?
They do.
Like the entire time, I was just like, "This song fits perfectly. Why is this song so great for this film?" They do that a lot throughout the film up until the very end, and it's just so good. Like like they made a great mix of the original film, and in the past, I had listened to these songs like here and there, but I have the album and I listen to those songs now more regularly than ever, and I have a feeling the same thing's going to happen with this mix volume 2. There's songs I've heard before, but I mean, for whatever reason, when you just put them together in this way, it just sounds amazing. I can't tell you why exactly, but it just does.
So,
It just feels great.
we talked about this before. Music curation. This is a thing that people have been studying, and there's something to be said about when you put music together in a specific way. Whether you're choosing songs that have been made already and you're putting them in a specific order, that says something. That really does say something. I feel like a music does extremely well when you don't remember listening to it. Like if it can blend in, but you felt emotions, the music kind of did its job.
Yeah, for sure.
Unless you're Lord of the Rings, where that music is so like outwardly memorable, and the strings just pulling on the heartstrings just terribly.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Howard Shore, you did a fantastic job. You heard it here.
Yes.
So that's music. Let's see. After music is the cinematography slot. The cinematography in this movie is beyond beautiful. I really thought that they used the same cinematographer that they did in the first movie, which is Ben Davis. In this movie, it's Henry Bram. They took what worked in the first movie and they improved it wonderfully. The cinematographer is tasked with the responsibility of actually standing behind the camera lens and pretty much does what the director needs him to do. Shoot the scenes, color correction, all of that stuff. They're in control and they lead that aspect of the film. They did amazing. There were a lot of memorable shots that were there.
Sure.
And when it comes to kind of picking up where someone left off, that's not an easy task. Like if just
especially
imagine,
for a
Josh,
world of this caliber.
Of course, but imagine, if I said, "Hey, I won't be with FGC podcast," someone's here going to be replacing me. It's going to be hard for you to kind of figure out how to work with that person, and vice versa. Like, I don't know if I would be able to do FGC podcast with anybody else. I just don't think I could.
You're not leaving me, are you?
No, I'm not. I'm not leaving.
Okay,
I'm not
good.
leaving.
Phew. Scared me.
But just imagine just for a second, if you're creating a film, when you're creating a film, it's not as fluid as it is when you're making a radio show or a podcast. Right. You have to pre-plan everything. You have to pre-plan the words. There's space to move around with ad-libbing. You take different takes, but that sequence where that scene in the first Guardians of the Galaxy when they Groot pulled out the battery and they kind of broke off into their different missions. Peter went to go get the prosthetic leg. Gamora went to go find the arm with the band on it. That whole scene was planned out shot for shot. And if you deviate from that, the movie would not have worked.
Right.
So that's hard, Somebody comes in and takes over. You got to get with the program. So that's, my take on the cinematography. It looks just as colorful as ever. The 3D, I don't know if you saw 3D, but I did. And I'm kind of glad that I did. I may go see it in IMAX 3D again next week.
That sounds like a plan. I did not see 3D, so I led you to do that part.
Yes.
But even in standard definition, the movie looked incredible.
Would you consider seeing it in 3D?
After watching it, yes, I definitely would. I feel like this is one of the very few films that I would recommend watching in 3D for the way that the world looks, pretty much the way that it feels. I feel like you would get an extra layer of that in 3D for sure. So I would not mind going to see this film in 3D at all.
Yeah.
Because everything just looked beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Like the planets that they visit. Everything looks, incredible. So that's my take on it. I feel like everything that was planned accordingly. To make this movie, look like an incredible space adventure. And they did their job. And there were, different locations throughout the film, and they all looked great. Whether it's, during the daylight, during the nighttime, whatever it is. The lighting effects, everything just looked beautiful.
Space opera to the max.
Yup.
Okay, so conclusion. Do we like it? Yay or nay?
I would say yay.
Okay.
I definitely like it. My voice cracked there. That was a little weird.
Yeah,
But I would say yay.
happens.
I definitely enjoyed this film a lot. I would definitely want to go back and see it again. Hopefully, I get to go back after the weekend when I have time.
When you have time.
Check to see what we got. But how about yourself, sir?
Okay, so I liked it.
I see doubt in your eyes.
It's not doubt. I had to think about this because I watched it. I was anticipating this movie, and I realized the biggest problem with this movie was me.
Okay.
The reason why the biggest problem with this movie is me is because everything was so good. And this is exactly what we talked about when, we watched not Man of Steel, but Batman vs. Superman and Suicide Squad. When we first started talking about watching this movie, we had such weird differences and opinions, but that's because I personally didn't have an opinion going in. So when you go into a movie with zero expectations, what you get is pretty good. Because I have such a love for Guardians of the Galaxy, and it took me by complete surprise, I'm going in with these high expectations, and not for nothing, they delivered. They delivered in music, they delivered in story, they delivered in acting, cinematography, directing. All of these aspects that were superseded my expectations, but because I was expecting a lot, I didn't necessarily leave the same way I felt coming from the first movie. So the biggest problem with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is me. That's the biggest problem.
Okay.
I liked it, absolutely. I really enjoyed that movie. But I did not leave Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 feeling the same way I did. And it's impossible, because I left Guardians of the Galaxy feeling the same way I left Avengers. But it's the same thing. Avengers, I had no expectations, and no one has ever seen that before. So, how do you recreate that? It would have to be another movie that I had no expectations. I come in and I'm completely floored. That's the only way that can ever happen.
And really quickly, just before we wrap up here, that's what I was going to go ahead and say. The beginning during the overall reception was that Guardians 1 and, Avengers 1 for that matter, they, like you said, they were what I considered sleepers. Like, people were like, I don't know if this is going to be good. I don't know if this is going to work. It's a talking tree and a raccoon. How could this be good? And then we went to go see it, and, expectations were destroyed, right? So now that you don't have that, you're going into a second version of this. You know what you're getting yourself into for the most part.
Sure.
The movie still had surprises and things of that nature, which is always great.
Many surprises.
But you go into it already knowing these characters. So you're just like, oh yeah, I know Rocket, I know Groot, we're good. So while this movie's still great, you're not going to get that same expectation or that same feeling you got from the original, because you didn't even know that you were going to get that,
Exactly.
So that's why that couldn't happen. That's also why, to me, when people go, oh yeah, no, Avengers 2 wasn't as great as the original. I like Avengers 2, but there was absolutely no way that it could have lived up to that expectation, because, again, we didn't know if all these superheroes in one place could work. And that movie showed us, it can work, and it can work beautifully.
Yeah.
And it, again, destroyed all expectations. There's no way that you can recreate that when you've already seen it.
You're absolutely right about that. And this is why I tell people all the time, the people that disliked Age of Ultron, I think they need to rewatch it again. Because that had some of the best sequences. They dislike it
because they didn't get that feeling again. Because,
exactly.
Well, they saw that already.
But they also didn't see the Hulkbuster versus the Hulk.
Right. That
did not happen. Oh my god. I've watched that scene so many freaking times.
Such a good scene. But yeah.
But this is not Avengers. This is Guardians of the Galaxy. And when we come back, we will talk about the origins of the Guardians of the Galaxy comic and the iterations it had through the years before it's made its way to the silver screen.
And then we will talk about the spoilers of the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 and stingers and Easter eggs.
Let's go, Josh.
And... Ooga, 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 chaka, 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 ooga, ooga.
I can't stop this feeling deep inside of me. Girl, you just don't realize what you do to me. When you hold me in your arms so tight, you let me know everything's alright. I'm hooked on a feeling, I'm high on believing that you're in love with me. Lips as sweet as candy, its taste is on my mind. Girl, you got me thirsty.
Welcome back to the FGC podcast. We are the captains of the Milano, Jace.
And Josh.
There are many things I want to discuss, but I know it's time for learning time.
Buckle in, baby Groot.
In this episode of Learning Time, we talk about the origins of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy are a fictional superhero team appearing in a series of books published by Marvel Comics. The first appearance was in the Silver Age of Comics during 1969 in the book titled Marvel Superheroes number 18.
The Guardians were created by Arnold Drake, who wrote them, and Gene Colan, who was the artist on the book. The team was originally a group of aliens led by a human who was trapped in a cryogenic sleep for 1,000 years. The original team consisted of Major Vance Astro, Martinex, a crystalline being from Pluto, Charlie 27, a soldier from Jupiter, and Yondu.
What caught the audience's eye was not that it featured aliens. No, the Avengers had that even covered by this time. But this was the first time that Marvel readers could experience the future through the eyes of the characters. However, even with moderate success, the book never took off as the series with more of a cult following than anything, until Steve Gerber came in.
Steve Gerber became the writer of the Guardians. He had the talent of taking characters that were not appealing and brought his own unique personality and style to making it great. Gerber added Starhawk and Nikki to the team and gave the book a new viewpoint. The team then went on to show up in another book titled Marvel 2-in-1 and most importantly, The Avengers during the Korvac saga, one of the most iconic stories in the Bronze Age of comics.
The team was relatively quiet for a while until the 90s when then editor-in-chief of Marvel, Tom Delgado, wanted to expand Marvel. He turned to Jim Valentino to script the book. It was a major success thanks to Valentino's storytelling. The book once again showed an amazing future setting by showing familiar elements of the then Marvel Comics universe.
While that was going on, however, Guardians that we know were popping up in separate stories. Drax and Gamora were around in the cosmos with Adam Warlock. They were created by Jim Starlin and Steve Englehart. Rocket Raccoon was created by Bill Mantlo and Keith Giffen, and in a book titled The Sword and the Star in 1976, Star-Lord was created.
Although he was not popular at all.
Though all these characters needed to be fleshed out, surely someone will do it, right?
Well, if you're Dan Annette and Andy Lanning, who put together the modern Guardians as we know them, then you'll be one of the most famous characters in the cosmos. The pair picked up characters who were visually stunning but were underutilized. The book gained a cult following, but more importantly, Marvel Studios head Kevin Feige caught interest, and when the Feige catches interest, the rest is history.
The Guardians have now had 2 major films and will appear again in Avengers Infinity War before returning for a 3rd film.
An animated series based on the current group debuted a year after the first live-action film in 2015.
A game has also been released from Telltale in episodic fashion, with the next chapters releasing in the upcoming months.
In the latest installment, Volume 2 introduces new Guardians, Mantis, Yondu, and Nebula into the fold, and the universe is expansive enough to warrant new team members to get recruited. It seems the Guardians are here to stay for quite some freaking time. I didn't know any of the things that we discussed just there, you know that?
I knew some of them, but you're right. There's a lot I didn't know.
Okay. Yeah, when the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. came out, as well as the Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, they mentioned Kree. And I had no idea what they were talking about. But I was cleaning out my drawer last week, right? And I found these old cards, like these old trading cards. But they were in like sports, although I do have those. But these old cards were like comic book characters. And I kept Captain America, the Wolverine and other X-Men characters. And on one of these cards, yeah, I had them back in grade school. And guess what? I also had a Kree card.
Oh, I just forgot about it?
Yeah. I mean, maybe. I just don't know if I ever cared for it's the Kree. And the Kree that you see on the screen, for the TV, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Kree on the movies, that's not the Kree that existed back in 97 at all. It looked like a big giant green circle with squiggly hair. It looked awful. I'll see if I can take a picture and I'll add it in the description.
Would you say it looked creepy?
Oh man, you are good with those. I did not see that coming at all. Yeah, I don't know how you do that, but you do that every single time, and it's almost like it's scripted. It's almost like it's scripted, but it's not scripted.
That was not.
No, that was not. Yeah.
Cool. So, spoiler time?
Let's do it.
All right.
Okay, so we have a lot of talking points that we just kind of rifle through. Yeah, which one should we talk about first? I think we should talk about the Marvel logo, because the Marvel logo remained the same from Doctor Strange. So there's that.
Spoiler, guys. Guys, spoilers. There was actually Doctor Strange scenes in the Marvel logo. Boom.
Wait,
spoiler number one. Yeah, so the updated logo from Doctor Strange did return. So it turned from what it used to be, it was comic pages flipping. And now it's, since, they have enough footage because of all the films that they've done in the past, the logo now goes through the different MCU films.
Interesting.
And what in Guardians now, there was, a little snippet of a scene from Doctor Strange. And you just see Doctor Strange is in there for just a quick little moment. But it's nice to know that going forward, at least I'm assuming, because that's what we're getting from this, they're forward, the logo, they're just going to keep changing it, adding new little scenes here and there, which is really cool. So that means the logo is kind of evolving along with the films, which is really cool. I thought that was a nice little touch there.
Well, you could also argue that the logo kind of also changed for the X-Men films, because they were changing that pretty much for every film as well.
Right, for sure.
They were adding in comic book pages for that. But, I think that's great for Benedict Cumberbatch. He doesn't feel slighted that he has to wait for another 2 years for him to appear in the Marvel logo.
Right. Well, we'll hopefully get a snippet of him in November with Thor.
I'm pretty sure we will be seeing that. But let's keep going through these. We have the opening sequence.
Yes.
Which I wanted to talk about this because I thought that was interesting, only because I didn't expect that scene to show up so early. I really didn't know where it was going to show up, but I didn't expect it to be the first scene.
Right.
So it kind of took me off guard. But it was one of the standout moments. And the reason why I'm also talking that is because I also want to talk about the trailers, because we talked about this before we went to break.
Yeah.
Where the trailers aren't spoiling the films anymore. You're getting actually different sequences as well as missing lines and action points. But the part that I want to talk about is, do you remember this? In the last trailer that has the song "The Chain" by Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah.
When Baby Groot is trying to put the guitar amp together, or the makeshift guitar amp that's made by Rocket.
Yeah.
He puts it together, but he's totally wearing a costume. He's wearing the Ravager garb.
Right. That he wears later on in the movie, but
right, but in the movie,
he's not
wearing that at all.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like they understand that you are going to be watching every single frame of this, so we are just going to completely change everything that you're seeing here, so the movie doesn't get ruined.
Sure.
I like that. I like that they are staying consistent with that, because I am one of those guys. I will watch every single frame if I have, number one, if I have the time for it. Number two, if it's a movie where, there's lots of information that's shared at pretty much every frame. So,
right.
Yeah, I liked it. But there were also missing lines. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I thought the opening sequence was just so great. Like, we touched a little bit upon it in the non-spoiler, but here we go, full spoilers. So, yeah, in the background, you just got, you got little baby Groot dancing around, not getting hit and anything, and I just thought that it was just fantastic. And yeah, I mean, Marvel's been pretty good with trailers. Very briefly, I'm just going to bring up the Spider-Man trailer. A lot of people are thinking, oh, that trailer gave away too much. But I don't think it's giving away anything. That's what I'm about to say. So I actually think now, especially after watching this movie and watching the trailer for this movie, I'm thinking, oh, if they're showing this much, there's a lot more they're not showing you, which I'm very happy with, and I cannot wait until July for that. But yeah, no, I definitely get what you mean about the trailer spotting and changing things and things of that nature.
But the flip side of that is that whereas the movie doesn't get spoiled, there are also some lines that you may want to hold on or am looking forward to seeing, which won't appear. This famously happened in Star Wars Rogue One, where Jyn Erso was walking down the catwalk, and a big giant TIE fighter kind of looked down her face with lasers pointed at her.
Yeah.
That didn't appear in the movie.
Right, or the I Rebel line.
Exactly. But in this movie, the same thing kind of happened, where there was a sequence, specifically the one I'm talking about, where Drax and Peter are talking to one another. And Drax unconventionally is giving advice to Peter in a very friendly manner that he needs to find someone as pathetic as him. He laughs it off. Peter Quill laughs this off, and Drax then asks, "Do you want a hug?" And he says, No, I do not. And he proceeds to hug him anyway. I thought this was fantastic. I was laughing so hard when I saw this. This was not in the film.
It was not.
I don't like it when they do that. I mean, Drax.
I don't like it when they do it either. But I mean, at the same time, Drax still got a good amount of laughing throughout the rest of the movie. So I figured they were just like, we'll cut this one little one because he's got so much already. So, I mean, that's the only reason I can think of. They were probably just like a little bit too much comedy there.
I really hope that one of these Marvel movies will do an extended edition. Please, just one. I just want one. They haven't done one ever since the first Iron Man. I don't know if they're doing this on purpose, but they should do it.
Yeah, theatrical release is final release to them. So
yeah, so that's my, I guess, my first few talking points. Here's my next question for you: who is the real villain?
Right. So if you look at the trailers, the real villain would be, Aisha and her race of sovereigns. However, the movie flips that around very quickly. Well,
very quickly.
Well, sort of. But Ego turns out to be the main protagonist. While they do get chased around by the sovereigns...
not protagonist.
Well, I mean, antagonist, sorry. While... sorry, I got my words mixed up there for a second.
That's okay.
While, yes, they are being chased by the sovereigns throughout the film...
they don't really do anything.
Ego, they really didn't. They were just like sitting behind their little arcade machines and then getting mad at each other when they couldn't shoot down the
I would say they're more of a massive nuisance than anything else.
Yeah,
like they just, oh no, not these guys again.
Exactly. But to me, Ego was definitely the main villain of this, and it was done very well. And we'll talk about this briefly, but Marvel has not exactly had the best track record when it comes to the villain side of the MCU.
Well, what does that mean? Let's talk about this in context, because this is Fresh Geek Context. What does that mean? What is Marvel
in
has
general,
a quote,
the track
unquote,
record,
bad track record? Yeah.
Yeah, so in general, the track record is that Marvel villains have not been that great. What the villains have been is just an inverse version of the hero. In Ant-Man, you of course have, Scott Lang, Ant-Man, and then you have Darren Cross, Yellow Jacket. They're pretty much the same thing. They're both characters that can shrink to tiny proportions, right?
Because of their suits. It has nothing to do with the actual character, though.
Right, but generally the hero power, quote unquote, is the same as the villain. So in Iron Man,
doesn't it?
Not necessarily, because Spider-Man doesn't have every single one of Spider-Man's big villains can't crawl on walls, besides Venom, but you have different things that can oppose him. Iron Man, he has a very good wide variety of villains, but what have they done in the Iron Man films? They chose, Obadiah
Put them all
Stane.
in Iron Man suits.
Exactly. Exactly. So, now, by the way, Obadiah Stane, played by Jeff Bridges, he's one of the good ones, to me, in my eyes. I thought he was great.
Sure.
But generally, this
one.
is... Exactly. But generally, this is the consensus of the cinematic universe, that their villains are not exactly the greatest. So, in the original Guardians, you had Ronan, right? Ronan's motivations and all that stuff, they were okay, but they weren't that great.
I don't think they were fully explored. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not properly developed villains.
Right. The point of these movies are to develop the hero, of course, right? That's the first and foremost thing. So they focus on that and they get that right. But then the villain at that point is, left to kind of be like, all right, well, I'm the bad guy now. Rawr. So that's pretty much what happens. But
I mean, listen, I don't necessarily know if I agree with that point of view, because number one, I did enjoy Obadiah Stane.
Right, and there are definitely a select few that are above that. You have Obadiah Stane, you have Loki, you have the Winter Soldier, which is technically a good guy now, and then also in my eyes, I actually enjoyed Whiplash from Iron Man 2. Like, I thought that was, pretty cool. And up until the very, end when he also puts on an Iron Man suit. Like, I liked him before that. It was kind of
strange.
Yeah.
I don't know if I liked him. I don't think he bothered me.
Yeah.
And then there was he's great. I like him. Malekith in Thor, The Dark World.
I love Christopher Eccleston, but yeah. Oh my
what was he doing in that movie? What is his purpose? He doesn't do anything. Yeah. Nothing happened in that movie. Nothing happened.
I actually like Zemo, though, from Civil War. I thought he was actually pretty good, too.
He was great.
Because to me, he's the only one that's accomplished anything. He's like, I'm going to break up the Avengers. What did he do? He broke up the Avengers.
Mission accomplished.
So Zemo, in my eyes, is also another one of those good ones.
That's what I'm saying. Like, what is the villain problem? Is it something that Marvel fans say because they are grouped together, or is that a legitimate point?
It seems to be a legitimate point, because even Kevin Feige has had to answer questions about this, and he's said that we wanted to do that at first, but then now they said they're going to go deeper into it, so we'll see. But the point of all this is to say that I thought that Ego's, the reason for doing the things that he does in this movie, I thought, they were legitimate. He's a Celestial.
I don't know. He kind of seems like a humongous. I'm sorry. I know this is G-rated. Can we bleep that out? I'm sorry. There was a part. Yeah, he's a jerk. He was a but the jerk is not a good enough word. When sometimes you need the precise word to. He's there's so many bad words I want to call him, but basically what he does is he sleeps around with the entire galaxy. That's
quite literally.
Yeah, I that part actually made me kind of uncomfortable. I was like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
It really took me off guard. And so, when I started seeing the whole plan and how he took all of his children and he basically killed them all, I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. What am I watching right now? Like, that actually took me off guard. And
That's a villain, though.
That's not a villain that we've ever had before.
Right.
That is not, I don't care what anybody, like, I don't care what you say. I don't care what any other critics say. That is borderline, like, kind of demonic.
Yeah. Definitely.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, that kind of activity is like, ugh, it made me uncomfortable. I'm just going to say it. It just made me uncomfortable.
That's fair.
So, like, it took me out of the element of the Marvel Cinematic. Because, it's like popcorn, you know what I mean? And maybe that's what they were going for. Like, let's take another edge to it. But, like, I don't know. I haven't been really able to fully put into words, but I know that part made me uncomfortable. Maybe this isn't the right time to discuss that. Maybe we'll do a follow-up. But,
sure.
Yeah, I didn't like Ego's character too much. He was just too, like, prickish. Let's put it that way. He was a prick.
So you didn't like him as in, like, good job, you made me... I'm not supposed to like this character, and good job, I didn't like him? Or
No. They absolutely did it. No, they actually did a good job. I wasn't supposed to like him, but I was just like, it's a different shade of evil that I've seen. Most of them are for selfish reasons. Loki is doing bad things because he always lived in the shadow of Thor. Obadiah Stane, wanted to rule the company and nobody was ever going to get in his way.
Right.
Darren Cross always wanted to be the son that Hank Pym always wanted, but could never really quite do that because family issues. All of these characters, I could understand it, but I can call it what it is. I can tag it and put it in its place. That's evil.
Right.
But literally, this energy being, lowercase g god, goes around and pretty much impregnates the entire galaxy. And I'm like, I can't believe this is happening. Like, these are social issues that people are actually trying to fight against. And it's actually, who knows, maybe they did that on purpose. Like, that was something that people would actually find slightly more relatable. And you were like, man, I really hope this person who thinks he's a god, gets it. Because I'm sitting there and I'm like, wow, okay, that's the villain? Upping the stakes here for a little bit.
Definitely. So I think Ego was done very, very well, for sure. But what did you, so let's continue on here. So what did you think about, we touched a little bit about Baby Groot, but what did you think about, like, the emotions with Baby Groot and then everyone and the sisters, like Nebula and Gamora,
so,
and then the dynamic
pairings
between Peter and Ego?
Yeah, so the pairings I thought were really interesting, and I thought they really took their time pairing everybody together, because I noticed that they did this in the trailer where Groot pretty much has a scene with everybody. Gamora says hi to Groot when she's shooting the gun in the movie.
So
exactly. She's like looking out, like everybody's looking out for Groot. And I think that kind of, holds that credence where Groot literally sacrificed himself.
Yeah.
To save everyone, so everybody feels indebted to him, and that they're looking, that paternal instinct kicks in for every single one of them.
Right, exactly.
I was slightly confused with why Drax and Groot didn't seem like I didn't feel like they had that same connection as everybody else did. In the end of the first movie, there was a scene where he's sharpening the knife, and I swear to you, I don't know if you felt the same way, but I really thought as he was sharpening the knife, and as Baby Groot was dancing to Michael Jackson 5, I thought that Drax was going to slice the root and kill him, and I was like, don't do it. Don't do it.
No.
Yeah, I know. I thought that's what was going to happen. My mind went there. I'm sorry, but it didn't happen. Thank goodness. But did you ever notice that Baby Groot kept kicking Drax?
Yeah, he kept kicking him and punching him and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but why was that happening? What was Drax doing where Baby Groot needed to do that?
I don't know. I think it was just like a fun, like how brothers like rough each other up every once in a while and stuff like that. I feel like that's what Baby Groot was doing. Baby Groot was just like, meh, just to kick somebody.
But he wasn't doing that for Raccoon, though.
He wasn't, but that's because Rocket and Groot, they have a relationship, right? even as a baby, you know, they're together.
Sure.
But I mean, at the end of the movie, you know, you see Groot like warming up to him, and he like falls asleep on him and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So it comes around full circle at the end.
It does. I just thought that was an interesting point. I don't know if I have identified the reason why that is. I don't know if it's necessarily like brothers roughing each other up, but I thought it was strange. I'll put it that way. The sisters, Gamora and Nebula, that gets fully realized in this movie, and I really enjoyed how, you know, she's not as cold-hearted. Nebula is not as cold-hearted as she initially appears.
Yeah,
she does have heart, but at the same time, she just really needed that companionship that they could have shared. But that came to let's just say a boiling point, where Nebula takes her ship and pretty much rams it into the earth trying to kill her sister. But they don't. they don't do that. But
yeah, like the fact that they gave like Nebula like that much, like you felt for her. Like in the original Guardians, you're just like, oh, she's a bad guy, blah blah blah. Yeah, they, you know, sister fight, ooh, blah blah. But then in this film, you're like, holy crap, they went through a lot as children. And it makes sense why Nebula is the way that she is. And, you know, that, you know, what she said in the film, you know, hey, you know, you were just preoccupied about winning. All I wanted was a sister. And you're just like, oh, crap, okay.
Yeah.
You're just like, that's, you know, insane what Thanos did to her. And you can understand why that rage comes out of her all the time.
Definitely one of the tearjerker moments for me. But let's also talk about the pairings of the father and son. Now, when I say father and son, you're probably thinking of Ego and Peter.
Right.
But, spoiler, not really a spoiler, because you kind of get an inkling in the first movie, and you definitely get an inkling in this movie.
You get it full force here, and it's, oh my god.
So you understand now why Michael Rooker's character, Yondu, was always quote-unquote soft. As a matter of fact, they said it maybe like 3 or 4 times in this movie.
Yeah, they mentioned it a lot. And even in the original one, one or two times.
They said it about twice. Yeah.
But here, Michael Rooker, dude.
So it appears that father and son are Ego and Peter, and it seems like everything is going wonderfully, but I gotta be honest with you, as soon as I saw him, I knew that something was off. And they do these things for a reason.
Sure.
Everything is done, you know, on purpose. Mantis kind of, you know, brings this to a light and kind of signaling to the first person is Drax that something is off. I need to tell you something. But Ego's reasons for, as I said before, are somewhat selfish. He kind of just wants to destroy it so everything is just him. It kind of moved me in a way. I felt the same way about Ego, the same way I felt about the villain in Gladiator.
Sure.
Like, I really hated that villain. I was like, ooh, I really hope you die in the worst way.
Yeah.
But surprising, you know, character that kind of shows up is Yondu. Yondu, again, always, you know, appears soft, but he was actually looking out for Peter in a very fatherly way. And it was actually a scene towards the very end where Yondu kind of scoops up Peter and with a rocket pretty much shoots into the sky, into space, saving him from the planet Ego, which is kind of, you know, decomposing after a gigantic explosion.
Yeah.
He says to Peter, "You may have found your father, but you know who's your daddy."
Yeah.
Which I thought was such an emotional line, but, you know, and there's a reason why he does it, because Yondu was tasked with the responsibility of transporting children to Ego for years, but once he found out what he was doing, he stopped, and Peter was the last person he stopped with.
Yeah.
They say in the movie there's a reason why he was doing that, because he was small and he was better for thieving, but he was saying that as, you know, I guess
he tried to protect
a shield,
pretty much.
Protect him, exactly. And he was saying
that protection, he practically raised him at that point. point.
Exactly. And yeah, so that, that relationship came fully realized, and then sad, but Yondu ends up dying at the end.
Yeah.
Which was, they committed. They actually committed.
Yeah.
They put him inside a burner and they sent his ashes out into space. I didn't think they were going to actually do it, but I'm missing Yondu right now. I just have to say it.
Yeah, no, Yondu was a great addition to the film, and then that entire ending, him like Peter giving that speech at the end, saying, "Hey, he was my father," pretty much.
Absolutely.
It was so well done, and you're just like, I'm crying for Yondu right now.
I'm crying for everybody. But did you notice how perceptive he is? And how he says, "Oh, I thought Yondu was your father."
Right.
And he was like, "No, man, blue. I'm not blue."
Right? Like,
very perceptible Drax. Everyone has their moment to shine, and I really enjoyed how everything was kind of parceled together. But that last part of the pairings is Rocket and Yondu. There was a very strong moment where they identified as one.
Yeah.
And how they kind of push, people away, not to see the person that's inside that's actually hurting.
Right.
Man, this movie is full of emotion. I couldn't deal with it. It was just one after the other.
It was a roller coaster.
It was a roller coaster. So the next part that I kind of wanted to talk about, moving along, was I'm waiting for the time where Disney World actually has a section for Guardians of the Galaxy, and they actually have Planet Sovereign, or the Sovereign Race, or whatever that planet is, where you get to fly in one of the teasers, because the sounds were like video game sound effects.
Yeah, that was pretty.
So
cool.
if they don't capitalize on that, I'm gonna be pretty upset. I'm just saying that right now.
Like in the arcade, you have like those bikes that you get on. It'd be cool if you got like one on one of those things and got to like, you just move side to side and stuff like that.
That would be dope.
That'd be pretty cool.
They gotta deliver though. Yeah. They have to deliver.
That'd be pretty cool.
Favorite scenes, favorite lines.
Oh my god, there's a good few that got me like really, really good. Favorite line, easily for me, I'm Mary Poppins, y'all.
I forgot about that line.
That line from Yondu.
Yes.
So good. So Peter Quill to Yondu goes, "You look like Mary Poppins right now." And Yondu's like, "Mary Poppins, is he cool?" "Yeah, he's cool. I'm Mary Poppins, y'all." So good. That easily killed me, honestly. I thought that's my favorite line from Yondu. For sure.
And there was another line where, Mantis is pretty much holding Ego down as much as possible, and just like debris falling all over the place. In the teaser, in the Super Bowl extended spot, you see that whole lineup of all the new Guardians, and a piece of debris hits Mantis in the face. And then, like, I want to say a second after, Drax reaches out his hand, he says, "Look out."
Mantis, look out.
And then and then you see Peter Quill, like, just shock and awe, like, "Oh no." I found that really funny. And then Drax just kind of shrugs it off. It was like, "Oh, it was too late for her."
Yeah, exactly.
That's not in the movie. So
but that was pretty great. The whole there was another line that Drax said. I can't remember right now. I need to go watch it again. But moving on from that, let's talk a little bit about the special effects. Let's talk about the beginning, the absolute beginning of the film. So the absolute beginning of the film.
Kurt Russell.
Yeah, it starts in 1980.
Kurt Russell looked real. They filmed that in 1980. They kept the film footage.
Right. And
they put it into a 2017 film. These people have foresight like I've never seen it.
I know, right?
I've never, like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. I don't know how they're doing this black magic. This is craziness.
Can you help me understand this? How did Marvel do this with not just Kurt Russell, but with Robert Downey Jr.?
Yeah, you're right.
In Civil War.
Civil War.
Made them look great as young versions of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I know Tron, came out a few years ago.
Oh no! Don't say that.
But young Jeff Bridges in that movie versus like these guys.
Okay, so I will.
How? And it's the same company, mind you.
I'm gonna counter that argument right now. Number one, Kurt Russell is the real deal. I'm just putting that right there, right now.
Kurt Russell is amazing.
He's the real deal. Robert Downey Jr., though, he kind of reminded me of Jeff Bridges. And Jeff Bridges in Tron wasn't that bad. Here's the reason why I think...
Some shots.
I understand that, but here's something else that I will point out right now for you.
Yeah.
In Tron is always the test pilot. Because when Tron first came out in, like, the early 80s... that they were using that technology to pioneer new technologies that they were going to be using in feature films thereafter.
Sure.
That's exactly what they were doing with Tron.
So Tron's like the pilot.
Tron is the pilot. They put all of their best technology there. They see how it works. They see how it's received, and they learn from it. But I love both Tron 1 and 2.
Oh, no. There's no denying that the Tron movies are also great.
Oh, amazing. And I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get a third one until I'm like 85.
Probably. Disney, get on it. Tron 3.
I just don't know. I think they're having too much fun with Marvel.
Yeah.
That's what we got going on right now.
We're having a lot of fun with Marvel. So much fun.
Fun.
We had a lot of cameos in there.
We had a lot of cameos, so let's talk about those. I mean, shall we even go down the list? The list is exhaustive. We have Howard the Duck.
We did have Howard the Duck again. That was fun to see. Don't know if he was voiced by Seth Green this time though.
It absolutely was.
It was okay. I couldn't hear the voice too well, but okay.
Oh, it was Howard the Duck, Seth Green. There is Stanley. He makes another appearance.
You gotta have Stan.
Are we saving that for last?
We'll talk about Stan in a little bit.
Okay, so there's Stanley, obviously, who we expect him in every movie at this point.
Exactly.
There's also a surprise appearance. You don't really see him. You kind of see the casket for, but
you see his little cocoon.
You see his cocoon, and he's presented by Aisha, which is the supporting villain. I don't even know what she is.
Right,
Maybe he's the reporting. But anyway, she says, "I will name him Adam," and that's it. For those that don't know, Adam is Adam Warlock, which is a mainstay of Marvel Comics. Very popular character. Is capable of wielding the Infinity Gauntlet with all the Infinity Stones.
Correct.
Which is interesting to see.
The, Soul Gem.
Exactly. I don't necessarily know if this is what's going to be happening here, but it's interesting to note that Adam is now in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yes,
we don't know who's going to be playing. Yeah, there wasn't an actual character playing him. You just see the nest where Adam is residing. Yep. There's also Grandmaster Jeff.
So the Grandmaster from the Thor Ragnarok trailers, you get a nice little glimpse of him in the during the credits. You see him dancing, getting along.
Yeah, which I thought was interesting.
Which I thought was very, very nice.
I looked at him and I was like, that looks like Jeff Goldblum, but I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
You also see Sylvester Stallone.
Yep.
Sylvester Stallone is in it, which we've been expecting for a long time, but what he was actually going to be playing was a different story.
And what we got was that Mr. Sly here was actually playing a character called Starhawk. And Starhawk is actually... I believe he was the leader. Was he not the leader, or was Yondu the leader?
Yondu was the leader,
Yondu was the leader. But Starhawk was beside him, and he is actually one of the original Guardians of the Galaxy, kind of what we touched upon during learning time there.
In the books.
Anyway, yes.
Exactly.
But this does technically confirm saying that there was these group, of people, not necessarily saving the galaxy, but the actual group existed, and they kind of hinted that they did their little thieving themselves and doing stuff like that. So it's nice to acknowledge that.
I think it's interesting that, which there are other cameos for that group of people, but I think it's really interesting that Marvel kind of understands that, we're sticking with the new, even though the old things happened already.
Exactly.
I think it's really interesting because we saw this with the original Iron Man, where Iron Man has the original suit where he uses to escape. They only had that in there for less than 10 minutes?
Right, but they
it served its purpose. Yeah. They acknowledged it, and they worked with it, and they made it work. So the fact that Sylvester Stallone is, playing an original Guardian, I think that's great. But also coupled with Ving Rhames. Ving Rhames is also in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yes.
Followed by Michelle Yeoh. Followed by Michael Rosenbaum. I think this is I think the only person that we're missing is The Rock. Once we have The Rock in there, we have everybody. That's it. We have the whole team.
We got everybody.
Yeah.
Miley Cyrus was technically also there. She voiced one of the original Guardians.
I forgot about her. Yeah. Yes.
So she's technically part of the original Guardians crew. And then we also had the Hoff. We had the Hoff show up.
David Hasselhoff also makes an appearance. He sings the final credits theme, Guardians Inferno. But he also makes an appearance by way of ego. Yes. Because
he does turn
Peter
into him.
He turns into him in a semi-mocking kind of fashion. Yeah. But in the movie, it's been stated several times that Peter looked up to David Hasselhoff as his father. So ego, to kind of stab him in the side a little bit, turns into David Hasselhoff, which is great. I knew once they had Hooked on a Feeling by Blue Suede, I knew they had to have David Hasselhoff in some way, shape, or form. It wouldn't be fair, because everyone remembers the silly video with David Hasselhoff flying through the air in a weird music video where he's kind of singing,
for sure.
Hooked on a Feeling.
So great. I don't care what anybody says. David Hasselhoff's a great man.
Oh, he is great. I mean, he's love Knight Rider. I wanted that car, but
I think everybody wanted that car. I still want that car.
Yeah, I know that.
And then we had a final cameo. By the way,
cameo?
Yeah, we had a final cameo.
Who was that?
Well, it wasn't necessarily a person. More of a that thing happened. We had a cameo from Microsoft Zune.
Oh, you remember the Zune? That's not a cameo.
Come on.
Is that a cameo?
That's a cameo. Because, come on. Who goes, hey, you remember the Zune?
That's not... First off, I was upset. The fact that they actually had the audacity to use a Zune, but that's neither here or there.
Well, the way that I see it, actually, it's like, Peter Quill had a Walkman, outdated piece of technology on him at all times. Now he has a new piece of outdated technology on him at all times.
That makes sense. I can appreciate that. Let's talk about these ending credits, because this is also a milestone. This movie had 5 ending credit scenes.
Right.
We've already mentioned about 2 of them.
Yeah.
Stanley appears twice in this movie. He appears in the movie with the Watchers.
And correct. He appears with the Watchers. And then, as was one of the 5 ending credit scenes, he appears again with the Watchers. Now, we have a little theory about this. So
yes, please talk to me about this.
There was an article that came out about a week before the movie came out, maybe a little bit closer.
I did not read this, but go ahead.
Yeah, that stated that Kevin Feige and James Gunn thought it would be a very, very fun idea to have the Stan Lee that is in every single MCU film so far. He's actually the same person in every single one of them.
Yes,
and that he's actually part of the the Watchers, and in the Guardians of the Galaxy, he's actually credited as the Watchers informant. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Watchers are an alien race, which basically, as the name suggests, they watch and document all living life throughout the universe. And what they do is they basically just observe and write down, the history of said planet or, area that they're overwatching. In the comics, it's usually a bad sign when a Watcher appears. The Earth technically has their own Watcher. In the comics, his name is Uatu. However, sadly, they cannot directly reference Uatu because his specific character actually belongs to Fox because he's technically part of the Fantastic Four. So they can't use Uatu specifically. However, they can use the race, the Watchers. But typically anytime the Watchers show up, it's not a good sign because that means like, oh, something big's going to happen. And so what Stan Lee was doing in the end credit scene and during the scene that you see him in Guardians, he's basically telling the Watchers what he's seen on Earth and things of that nature. He even says, hey, this one time I was a FedEx guy, specifically referencing when he gave, Tony Stark his FedEx package in the Civil War movie.
That's right.
So pretty much Stan Lee is part of the Watchers.
I don't think. Now that's what you say.
Right.
I don't know
so you have a different take on it. So what's your take?
My take is because he's not a Watcher. Because when you watch the movie, he's clearly in a helmet. He's not a Watcher. He's the Watcher's informant.
Right.
I think the informant for the Watchers is not a Watcher.
Sure.
I think working with the police doesn't necessarily make you the police.
Have you never seen every buddy cop psych show ever? I don't know.
Yeah, but that doesn't make them police officers. They just work for the police, and they kind of string them along.
Great comedy shows.
It makes them great comedy shows. My theory is, I always suspected that Stan Lee was the same character. I think after watching this, Stan Lee is the one above all.
Okay.
Which is basically the most powerful character.
Sure.
Who has pretty much written the entire universe, which would actually be fitting if you think about it.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Because to make him a Watcher would actually be...
downgrading?
I don't know. Yeah, I just think that'd be taking away from Stan Lee. Okay. Because you're going to make him a Watcher. If you ever introduce the one above all, who is it going to be?
Just make it Stan Lee just standing there.
Yeah, I'm saying, think about it for a second. If you have the one above all, who are you going to cast?
Oh, I would totally cast Stan Lee.
That's what I'm saying. So I think he's not a Watcher. I think he's the one above all.
No,
I haven't seen anybody. I haven't seen anybody talking about this, but if he is truly a Watcher, like you say, then I get to buy you a drink. But
well, again, he's credited as the Watcher's informant, so
informant.
Yeah, that doesn't necessarily mean he's a Watcher. But yes,
I don't think he is. Yeah, but that's just me.
But still, the fact that they have, Stan Lee actually being a character, not just this throwaway cameo that we see every once in a while. The fact that he's actually integrated into the story now officially, it's really cool. And
I already filmed his scenes for Infinity War, so
yeah, they said that they filmed a good few portions of him going forward just in case. Yeah.
All at the same time too, which I thought was excellent. But let's talk about the rest of these 5 ending credits because we talked about Adam Warlock, we talked about Stan Lee, and then there were 3 other scenes. One of them being Craig Lick, which is Gunn's brother.
Yep, Sean Gunn.
He puts the prototype fin on and is using the arrow. He starts whistling and he's struggling with it, first time for everything. And he kind of shoots it at Drax's neck, and he starts screaming uncontrollably in pain. And
it's literally him screaming for like 2 minutes.
It's very uncomfortable to watch. And then he kind of runs off.
Yeah, it's so great.
So that was 3.
You also had another funny one. You had Mr. Teenage Groot.
Teenage Groot, yes.
So you had Groot going through puberty, basically. And Peter Quill comes in and he's like, Groot, what are you doing? You need to clean up your room. You got vines hanging out everywhere. And Groot's just like, I am Groot. Like, leave me alone. Whatever. I'm playing my game here. Blah, blah, blah. It was just so funny to see Groot in that way. And, you see him as a little baby and he's all adorable. And now he's like a teenager. And you're just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that was the 4th one.
That was the fourth one, and I forget the fifth one. Remind me.
And then the last one was kind of just a little variation of the Sylvester Stallone thing that we talked about of the original Guardians.
That's right.
You just got them together for one final scene, which was really cool. So that was the fifth one.
Which is pretty much putting the pieces together, saying that these guys were the original.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that was really cool seeing all of that stuff to come together.
For sure.
And again, 5 ending credits. We usually, if we're lucky, we might just get 2.
Right, exactly.
If you're Joss Whedon at the end of Age of Ultron, then just 1.
I mean, he had his 2 in the first one.
He had his 2 in the first one. Yeah. But, one was a funny one and one was surprise.
Exactly.
I'm Thanos. Exactly. I'm going to tear up this universe. The last thing that I want to talk about is the Celestials. The Celestials, that is what Ego is.
Correct.
Is revealed fully. I kind of got excited because the Celestials, there is one Celestial that is known for eating planets. He's also not available to use because he's not currently owned.
One day.
I don't know if that day is ever going to come. Although there is somebody that I know that is, not getting into my head, but has been telling me that there's a chance. And I'm like, you already know my feeling on this. Sure. I already, say I've already given up. So if it happens, awesome. But if it doesn't, I'm really not surprised.
We'll see what happens. As long as he's not a cloud again, we'll be fine.
Let's not talk about that ever. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, that's the review. I don't really know if there's anything else. We've really just talked about all the parts that we find really interesting.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
Okay. And that's the review. So let us know what you thought of the movie. Did you like it? Did you okay it? Which movie has been your favorite?
Oh, wait. Are we ranking?
The MCU movies?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. Why not? Top 5. Go.
Oh, great. Why do you do this to me all the time? All right.
I did do that.
All right. So, number 1. It's tied, but
Are we going from 1 or are we going from 5?
Oh, we're going from 5? Oh, that's even harder, I feel like, because now I have to...
Not really. I mean, listen, you can do whatever you want.
All right. Well, you know what? I'm not putting these in order, because
You're not putting these in order.
Okay. But I got Civil War. Avengers.
Civil War, Avengers.
Winter Soldier. Definitely Guardians 1.
Okay.
I'm debating of putting Guardians 2 in there, but I'm also debating putting Iron Man 1.
Okay. You sound so defeated.
I do, because these movies are amazing. I think I will put Iron Man 1 over Guardians 2, just because I already have Guardians 1 in there. So, that's not to say I think Guardians 2 sucks, but in the top 5, that's what I'll probably do.
Okay.
With Guardians 1 easily being in the number 3 spot, and then the number 1 and 2 spot are always being fought between Avengers and Winter Soldier, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, let's see. For me, number 5... This is hard now, because now we have Doctor Strange, and I enjoy that movie, but I don't know if I enjoy that movie more than anything else.
Yeah.
So, I want to say at the top, I think it's still Avengers. Still holds a special place in my heart. And then it's Guardians of the Galaxy, and I know I'm like every other MCU fan out there. It's usually Avengers and then Guardians of the Galaxy.
Sure.
In that top 5, I don't know if it's necessarily in order, Winter Soldier has got to be in there.
Sure.
Then followed by Civil War.
Okay.
And then the last spot goes to... Wait, is my list the same as your list?
It probably is. What's your last one?
I'm going to say it's
Hold on, say your last one first.
I'm trying to. I'm going to say Avengers 2.
Okay, so your list is slightly different than mine. By one movie.
By Iron Man, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. See, I like Iron Man, but I see. I think people knock Avengers 2 for no reason.
Again, it's not in my top 5, but that's not to say that I think it's, crap or anything. I still love it.
Absolutely.
I love all these movies. That's why when you say, what's your top 5, I'm just like, ah.
Because we can't go in order, because we're going to be here for like another hour.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
That's all we have for this show. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll tell you what, if you like what we had to say, you can follow us on Twitter. I am at Jace Rockland. And Josh?
I am at JCA90. You can also find us at FGC Podcast or email us at freshgeekcontext@gmail.com.
You can also visit our website at freshgeekcontext for past episodes. And lastly, if you could, please hit that subscribe button for us on iTunes. It goes a long way for us to know that you're listening. And you can go to our podcast section or the podcast app on your iPhone or iPad so you can share with your friends so they could be Fresh Geeks too. Everyone, go out there, watch the movie. Hope you enjoy it.
I didn't mess up this time. I'm Mary Poppins, y'all.
Have a good one, everybody.